I thought you might be stopping by today. Come in, get comfortable. The kettle's just been on, and the wind has taken to whispering again. He usually does that when something's ready to be remembered. Oh, this? I've just dusted it off. It's the first, the very beginning of it all. It came to me quietly, like all good stories do. No fanfare. Just a green thread and a feeling I hadn't felt in quite some time. Would you like to hear it? I could read a few pages if you'd like to stay a while. All right then. Let's begin. Where the mist has just settled and the world is still remembering how to wake. The village of Willowmere curled like a question mark beside the river wending, its cobbled lanes and mossy rooftops softened by the hush of late spring. Mist gathered like lace between the chimney tops, and the thatch roofs glistened faintly with the memory of dawn rain. Garden light bells blinked faintly in the morning mist, their soft bioluminescence barely visible against the grey-blue air, and the wind carried the low hum of bees drifting between blossoms. An old rhythm, steady and slow. Most mornings passed like this, unhurried and half-forgotten, the kind of days that didn't need remembering to be important. The sort of days that wrapped themselves around you like a wool blanket worn thin from kindness. In a timber-framed cottage near the market green, a kettle began to sing. Inside, the Lanternkeeper's cottage stirred awake with its own quiet rhythm. A shutter creaked open on its hinges, letting the sweet scent of thyme and the faint musk of damp stone. Rain had passed in the early hours, leaving the world washed and still. A rush mat was shaken out and relaid, its woven strands slightly uneven on one corner. A small imperfection left untouched out of affection. A whisper light, small and bell-shaped, was taken from its wooden shelf and polished with a square of beeswax cloth. It responded the way it always did, with a soft shimmer as sunlight passed through it, fracturing into golden shapes that had danced across the uneven floorboards. The one who lived there, keeper or apprentice, or perhaps something in between, moved gently through their morning. No shoes yet, just wool socks and the echo of memory in each step. They were the kind of person who did things in the same order every morning, not from habit, but reverence, as if each small ritual held some quiet truth they hadn't yet named. They brewed tea the way their grandmother once had, a pinch of dried elderflower, 3 thyme springs, and a twist of honey from a jar wrapped in wax cloth. The kettle cooled, the cup steamed. They carried it with both hands to the window nook, where a narrow bench overlooked the garden path. There, they sat and sipped slowly, letting the quiet of the morning settle over their shoulders like a shawl. Their gaze drifted, as it often did, to the cupboard beneath the lantern shelf, a habit, not a question. That cupboard had always been there. It smelled of cedar and old oilcloth, a faintly dried mint. It held their winding twine, their cotton wicks, the wax blocks for resealing lantern seams, and the small pocket knife passed down through 3 hands before theirs. But this morning, when the door creaked open to retrieve a length of twine, something different waited inside. Not twine, not oilcloth, a letter. It wasn't folded in any particular way. No wax seal, no stamp, no envelope. Just a single slip of thick parchment, soft around the edges, as though it had been handled many times long ago. They stared at it for a long moment, the way one might look at an object from a dream, uncertain whether it belonged to the world of the waking or if it had followed them across from somewhere else. Their thumb brushed the edge of the paper. The ink was faded, not blurred. The words held firm. Tend the light, and it will speak. No signature, no date, no sign it had been written for anyone in particular. And yet, it felt like it knew them. They held it in one hand and their tea in the other, unsure which held more warmth. Of course, it could have been an old note, perhaps one their grandmother tucked away long ago and forgotten. The kind of thing left behind in the quiet corners of life. But they had cleaned that cupboard dozens of times, carefully, tenderly, restocked the wax and the old cotton wicks, run their fingers along the back panel, tracing the knots in the grain. There'd never been any paper tucked in the back, not until now. They set the letter gently on the table and stared at it between sips. The steam curled around it like breath. Tend the light. Well, they always did. Not out of duty, but affection. Each lantern had its own rhythm, its own quiet language. Even the unlit ones were polished once a week. It was proper. The whisper lights along the back stairs were especially particular. They flickered if polished clockwise instead of sunwise. Everyone in Willowmere knew that. But still, the words felt more than instruction. They felt familiar, or maybe remembered. They moved through the rest of their morning as usual, but something followed. The letter lingered at the edge of their each task, like a half-remembered melody. When they trimmed the wick of the porch lantern, they paused, fingers still. It gave off its usual faint scent, cypress and soot. But was the glow different? Not brighter, not darker, just a little more present. When they passed the alcove near the cellar stairs, they paused again. The lantern there, Marin's lantern, they called it, hadn't been lit in a living memory. Some said it was ceremonial, others said it was hers, the one she kept beside her bed. They leaned in, and for just a moment, they thought they saw a shimmer in the glass. Not light, not reflection, something else. It passed. The lantern was still cold, but the feeling remained. That evening, they lit the kitchen whisper light early. It responded with its usual warmth, a soft golden hush that filled the small space with quiet comfort. They moved to tend the hearth, reaching for the poker, and the light flickered, just once. A brief pulse, like a breath held too long and let out all at once. And in that flicker, a shadow moved across the room. Even though nothing had passed in front of it, even though the windows were closed, even though no breeze stirred the thyme hanging from the stove. They rose slowly, turned. The whisper light had steadied again, but something had changed. The air felt tuned, as though the walls themselves were listening. When they turned back to the table, the teacup was where they left it. But the letter had shifted slightly. Not far, just enough. It now faced them, its top edge neatly squared with the grain of the table, as though it wanted to be read again. That night, as the whisper light dimmed itself into sleep, its golden glow softening into embers, they laid the letter on the windowsill beside it. The parchment caught the last blush of twilight, a kiss of warmth before the dusk settled in. They didn't read it again. They didn't need to. The words were already nestled deep in the quiet places of their mind, alongside old lullabies and the scent of wood smoke in early autumn. Some were deep in Lantern Hollow, beneath the watchful reach of Aldernight's branches. A long unlit lantern caught a thread of wind and trembled. And that is where we'll leave it for now. Funny, isn't it? How even the smallest story knows when to pause. Like it's taking a breath with you. Thank you, my friend, for keeping company while I read. It's different. Reading with someone, like the story settles a little deeper. There'll be more the next time the letter finds us. Until then, mind your path on the way out. And if you do pass by the lantern at the gate, look twice. Sometimes it flickers when no one's there. Take care, my friend. I'll keep a cup warm for you.